This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Oh. Ron Hongyu looked at him indifferently and said, "If that's the case, then I'll have to thank you. Although your strength is very strong among the younger generation, it's still not enough to look at in the entire Red Moon City. You should leave on your own." Yunxiao swallowed with difficulty, his face turning paler and paler. How could he tell the women in front of him that Jiang Churan had died to save him? "Big brother Yunxiao, quickly come in and take a seat. No matter what your reason is, we are very grateful to you." Jiang Ruame came forward as well. A fragrant aroma filled Yunxiao's nose as the soft flesh wrapped around his arm. The two beautiful sisters pulled him into the house, one on each side. "I'm sorry," Yunxiao said with difficulty, gritting his teeth. Ron Hongyu frowned and said, "What do you mean, young master Yunxiao?" Yunxiao slowly closed his eyes and said, "In the end of time, City Lord Jiang died to save me." Eh? Zhu Jingyi suddenly screamed and immediately covered his mouth with both hands. He stood at the side with his eyes wide open in shock. The entire hall instantly fell silent. It was extremely quiet. "What did you just say?" "Big brother Yunxiao, what are you talking about? My father is dead?" Tears flowed out of Jiang Ruobing's big eyes, turning into a small river that could not be stopped. Although Ron Hongyu had already told them about this possibility, everyone still held on to a glimmer of hope. After all, no one could confirm that Jiang Churan was really dead. Even the people from the Four Extremes sect were afraid. Jiang Ruame's charming posture disappeared in an instant. She let go of Yunxiao's arm with both hands, and her body was a little unsteady. Ron Hongyu's eyes reddened instantly. On the night the star fell and the sky was filled with snow, she knew that Jiang Churan must have died. The heart-wrenching pain was so real. It was the feeling between husband and wife, more real than any news. "Mistress, what should we do?" One of the cultivators panicked. All these days, the only thing that had supported them was that Jiang Churan was still alive. Now, that belief had collapsed all of a sudden. Everyone felt as if there was no light in front of them. Ron Hongyu already knew this would be the outcome, so she was the calmest of them all. Her weak body trembled a few times before she calmed down. Her eyes were red as she sobbed, "With his cultivation base, who can kill him?" Yunxiao opened his eyes slightly and said, "Tianxi." Ron Hongyu's body trembled and she cried, "Tianxi, it really is Tianxi." "I'm sorry," Yunxiao said guiltily. "Tianxi wanted to kill me. It had nothing to do with him. He died to save me." The entire hall was silent in an extremely sorrowful environment. Only the sound of sobbing could be heard. Only a limited number of male martial artists had ashen faces and worry between their brows. The sorrowful atmosphere spread as everyone stared at Yunxiao with hatred. "You're the one who killed my father." Jiang Ruobing also cried. "Compensate my father." He raised his right hand, unsheathed his sword, and thrust it straight at Yunxiao. Bang! The tip of the sword stabbed into Yunxiao's chest, but it was blocked by a golden light, unable to penetrate any further. Yunxiao frowned. At the moment, his body was stronger than a 9th-tier demon beast, and it was not Jiang Ruobing who could hurt him. He grabbed the sword and stabbed it into his chest. Swish! The sword entered his body, and bright red blood flowed out. Yunxiao laughed miserably as well. He felt very bitter in his heart. Jiang Ruobing was shocked. She stood there with her hand on the hilt of her sword, not knowing what to do. She even stopped crying. Ron Hongyu was the calmest of them all. She gave Yunxiao a look and seemed to understand something. "Saving you was Chu Ran's choice. We respect his choice. His death was his own choice. It has nothing to do with you. You don't have to blame yourself." Pfft. When Yunxiao heard this, the anger that had been suppressed in his chest finally burst out. He coughed up a mouthful of blood and laughed miserably. "I don't need to blame myself? Of course I don't need to blame myself. All of them were so full of themselves, thinking that their cultivation and martial arts were unparalleled and that they were amazing, right? Now that they're all dead, they must be feeling great. Everyone stopped crying and frowned when they saw his crazed look. However, they could not hide the disgust and anger in their eyes. Shut up, you piece of trash. An old woman finally couldn't take it anymore and exploded. City Lord Jiang died to save you. Please be more respectful in your tone. Respect? Why did he have to show off how powerful he is in front of me? He deserves to die. Yunxiao threw his head back and laughed. Trash, you deserve to die. The old woman was furious. She gathered a trace of yuan qi in her hand and was about to slash it, but Ruan Hongyu stopped her. This is Churin's choice, Ruan Hongyu said miserably. I'm sorry. Everyone was shocked and angry. At this time, it was their mistress who went to comfort the person who killed the city lord. Each and every one of them couldn't control themselves, and their anger soared. Only Ruan Hongyu, who was facing Yun Xiao, saw 2 lines of blood tears flowing down his eyes under his laughter, which was uglier than crying. He's indeed hiding here. I was right. Suddenly, a sneer came from outside the small courtyard. Immediately, dozens of powerful auras were distributed around the small courtyard. Everyone was shocked. They had finally been discovered by the people of Red Moon City. Moreover, in all directions, there were people guarding the place from both the sky and the ground, surrounding the place so tightly that not even a drop of water could pass through. Zhu Jingyi's expression changed drastically as well. He had already recognized the voice. Yan Xinghua, it's you, you bastard. Jiang Ruame gritted her teeth and trembled with anger. Several people walked into the hall. The person beside them was the leader of the Ice Cube, Yan Xinghua. He looked around the hall and smiled proudly. What are they doing? Was he mourning for Jiang Churin's death? Zhu Jingyi seemed to be a little afraid of him. His body shrank back a little before he said, Big brother Xinghua, how could you be like this, bringing outsiders to capture young lady Ruame and Ruabing? Bah. Get lost, you damn fatty. Yan Xinghua rushed up to Zhu Jingyi and gave him a kick, sending his fat body flying. Yan Xinghua, you ungrateful bastard. You're worse than a pig or a dog. Jiang Ruame's face was livid with anger. She pointed at him and started scolding him. Humph, bah. I'm ungrateful? You bitch. When Yan Xinghua saw Jiang Ruame, an evil look appeared in his eyes. He grinned hideously and said, You used to be as fat as a mountain. How did you torture me every day? I'm really better off dead. Now that you're beautiful, I can return all the things you've done to me in the past to you one by one. And there's also Lady Ruabing, to share with a sister, the joy of life is nothing more than this. The entire sky was filled with his sinister smile, and all the Jiang family members were filled with righteous indignation, so angry that smoke was coming out of their foreheads. The young lady of the Jiang family had never suffered such humiliation. A martial artist beside Yan Xinghua frowned. These people are people that old Master Tang wants. You can't control them as you please. The old woman beside Ruan Hongyu glared at the martial artist and gritted her teeth. Jiang Chaopeng, the city lord treated you well when he was still alive, right? You actually brought an outsider to capture the mistress? You're truly cruel and unscrupulous, worse than an animal. A look of shame flashed across the martial artist Jiang Chaopeng's face. He immediately lowered his head and did not dare to answer. Jiang Chaopeng, since you've chosen to follow Master Tang, you should draw a clear line with these old people. The leader of this group of people had a cold expression on his face. He looked at the people in the room and the corners of his mouth curled up in a mocking smile. Yes, Sir Hong is right. Jiang Chaopeng seemed to be extremely afraid of the person beside him as he hurriedly nodded and bowed in agreement. It's Hong Juanhuan, the hall master of the Four Extreme Sects Clear Sky Hall, Ruan Hongyu said. Tang Qing really thinks highly of us women. That's a past identity, Hong Juanhuan laughed coldly. I'm Hong Juanhuan, the commander of the guards of the Crimson Moon City. I'm here on the orders of the city lord of the Crimson Moon City, Old Master Tang, to bring Madam, the two young ladies, and many other officials back. This Red Moon City is no longer Red Moon City. We would rather die than return. The old woman coldly snorted, her face filled with determination. Everyone also looked like they were not afraid of death, showing the determination to fight to the death. However, there were also a few people who looked like they were struggling. Their eyes were filled with confusion and conflict. Jiang Ruame replied coldly, Tang Qing, that old fogey, just wanted to hold my mother hostage to dissolve some of the Jiang family's resistance forces. My mother saw through your plot and escaped. Even if she dies standing today, she will not kneel and go back with you like some gutless beasts. You're right. The old woman said proudly. Today, we will use our blood to awaken the fighting spirit of the Jiang, Ning, and Ruan families of the Red Moon City. The heart to fight? Hong Juanhuan laughed. The decision to marry Old Master Tang was made by Madam's younger brother. It represents Madam's own will and the will of everyone in Red Moon City. Do you want to go against the wishes of everyone in the city? Ruan Hongyu, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke. Yuan Si had no choice but to do this, but I didn't expect your Tang family to be so close to us and even want to swallow up our three families. You're truly too greedy, like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. One day, he'll suffer the consequences of his own actions. Even if there is, you won't be able to see it, madam. Capture all of them. Hong Juanhuan ordered. Kill anyone who resists. The Jiang family's expressions changed drastically. They didn't expect the other party to really give the order to kill. They thought that at most, they would just capture her. After all, Ruan Hongyu's existence was still of great value to Tang Qing. Perhaps something unexpected had happened in the Red Moon City, causing Ruan Hongyu to lose her value. No, don't kill me, I surrender. Immediately, a few people with weak wills turned pale in fright and hurriedly defected. The old woman was shocked and furious. You guys, why? The traitorous cultivators looked guilty and said, the situation is more powerful than the people. We just don't want to die. How have the city lord and his wife treated you? The old woman gritted her teeth and asked coldly. The few of them lowered their heads even more. They knew that they were ashamed and did not dare to raise their heads to look at everyone. Let them be, Ruan Hongyu said indifferently. It's human nature to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. Don't blame them. That's right. Those who can see the big picture can live. Is there anyone else who wants to forsake the darkness for the light? Hong Juanhuan looked around coldly, and no one said anything. They all looked like they were ready to die. Good, you have a backbone indeed. Hong Juanhuan had a mocking smile on his face. He pointed at the surrendered martial artists and said, in order to show your sincerity, I'll let you all make the first move. Each of you will take 3 heads, and that will prove your sincerity. What? The martial artists were all shocked and dumbfounded. Cold sweat broke out all over their bodies as they pleaded, Lord Hong, we're weak and can't beat the mistress and the others. Hong Juanhuan's face darkened. I don't need a weakling, he shouted. If he's not strong enough and doesn't have any battle merits, what's the use of him? The Red Moon City doesn't keep useless people. The cultivators stood there in a daze, their faces alternating between red and white. At this moment, they wished there was a hole in the ground to hide in. What's wrong? You don't want to make a contribution? Hong Juanhuan's eyes flashed with mockery and killing intent as he snorted. Since that's the case, what's the use of having trash like you? I'll kill you all. You're humiliating us. The martial artists were both embarrassed and angry. Their faces were purple like eggplants as they roared and rushed forward, wanting to fight for their lives. A few ants. Do you think you have the bargaining chips to negotiate with me? You're so ugly. Hong Juanhuan raised his right hand, and a blue light gathered in his palm before he slapped it down. A circle of palm power spread out and swept across the air. Bang! Bang! With a series of stone-crushing sounds, the bones of those martial artists were completely destroyed on the spot, and they spat out large mouthfuls of blood. They were crushed into meat paste by the palm and fell to the ground, dying a tragic death. Many of the Jiang family's women cried out in horror. The way they had died was too terrifying. 7 stars Martial Emperor. Ruan Hongyu's face darkened. Hong Jianhuan's cultivation level was similar to hers, but from the way he attacked just now, he seemed to be stronger. She transmitted her voice to the old woman in front of her, "Granny, immediately take Ruame and Ruabing and escape. Kill your way to the teleportation zone at all costs. Once you've escaped from the Red Moon City, immediately head to the Jade Toad clan of the North region." The Jade Toad clan was one of the 10 great sects of the North region and had an extremely good relationship with the Red Moon City, especially with the Jiang family. A look of defiance and unwillingness flashed across Granny He's face, but under Ruan Hongyu's pleading, she let out a long sigh. "What, you're leaving behind your last words?" Hong Jianhuan could tell that she was using the secret sound transmission technique. He laughed coldly. "Don't even think about leaving today, kill." Under his command, the martial artists beside him all moved one after another, heading towards the women. Just as Ruan Hongyu was about to fight the enemy, Yunxiao suddenly stood in front of her and said, "All of you leave this to me." His face was extremely gloomy. He immediately used the Great Wind Fire Wheel, and a terrifying elemental power filled the hall, quickly spinning toward the martial artists. Arg! A. After a few screams, the martial artists realized that even the Emperor Qi of the 9 heavens could not resist the terrifying power of wind and fire. They were immediately burned to ashes. Ruan Hongyu was stunned for a moment, and a look of struggle flashed in her eyes. At this critical moment, she was not a pretentious person. She said, "Take care." Suddenly, a sword shadow rushed out of his body and pierced the sky. He shouted, "Follow me." The people of the Jiang family followed closely behind, with Granny He covering the rear. More than 10 people flew out of the broken sky in a single file. Hong Jianhuan was shocked and said angrily, "Bastard, you deserve to die. All of you, chase after him." The underlings were intimidated by the giant crocodile's might. They were relieved to hear the order and rushed out of the house to chase Ruan Hongyu. Hong Jianhuan himself rose into the air, his palm turning pale blue as he slapped at Yunxiao. Yunxiao's face was calm, but the killing intent in his eyes was daunting. The Divine Realm tablet appeared in his hand and he hit it like a brick. Bang! Hong Jianhuan's palm hit the Divine Realm tablet, and he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his hand. He quickly retracted his hand in horror, and his entire palm became a bloody mess. He was horrified, but before he could think, he saw the Divine Realm tablet turn into a small mountain and crush down. "Boy, you dare to look down on me." Hong Jianhuan's arms suddenly became extremely thick. He held a heavy machete in his hands and slashed at the Divine Realm tablet with a roar. Bang! The saber hit the Divine Realm tablet, and the huge force was reflected back. Bang! Bang! Hong Jianhuan's legs were pressed into the ground by more than a foot, and his face was filled with shock. His saber ray had at least 10,000 jin of force, which could split mountains and break stones. Moreover, the saber in his hand was slashing at a profound level weapon fiercely. Even ordinary 9th tier profound level weapons would be seriously injured by the impact. However, the Divine Realm tablet seemed to be fine. It was still pressing on the saber, and it was getting heavier and heavier. The veins on Hong Jianhuan's arms were popping out, but he was still gradually unable to withstand the pressure. Humph. Yunxiao snorted coldly as he teleported to the Divine Realm tablet and performed the Great Realm Divine technique in his hand. The power of the world emerged with a loud bang and began to devour the light on the saber, while the infinite gravity increased several times. What? Hong Jianhuan cried out in shock. He saw the extremely hard saber in his hand being bent, and the force in his hand seemed to have increased by several times. He could no longer withstand it and was pressed into the ground. The entire courtyard within a 100-meter radius collapsed from the impact. Having succeeded in his attack, Yunxiao did not continue to attack. Instead, he put away the Divine Realm tablet, turned into a bolt of lightning, and shot toward Wan Hongyu and the others. The most important thing for him now was to ensure the safety of Wan Hongyu and the others. As for the debt of Red Moon City, he could slowly settle it. Not far away, Wan Hongyu and the others were surrounded by Hong Juanwan's martial artists. There were a few mid-stage martial sovereigns among them, and they were suppressing the women. Die. Kill. Yunxiao cried out. 11 Northern Heaven Cold Star swords burst out of his body, turning into huge golden sword runes and falling from the sky. Sword Cloud Rain. He shouted, and the sword talisman immediately scattered into countless small swords, which were like thin needles, and sprinkled down from the sky. The wind blew and the rain drizzled in the air, forming tiny tornadoes. Arg. A. There were constant screams. Those who were below the martial supreme cultivation level were almost instantly killed. Even the low-level martial supremes could only hold on in fear under the drizzle sword chi. They did not dare to be careless. Wan Hongyu was the only high-level martial sovereign among all the women, and she was already overwhelmed with the task of protecting everyone's safety. She was extremely anxious, and she only breathed a sigh of relief when she saw Yunxiao attack. She was also greatly shocked. The power of Yunxiao's attack at this moment was no less than hers. She knew that now was not the time to think about these things, so she cast a grateful look and continued to lead the group away. "Milord, they're trying to escape, quickly chase after them." Yan Xinghua was in the crowd. He had not put in much effort, but his eyes were the sharpest. He immediately screamed. A killing intent flickered in Yunxiao's eyes as he teleported above the man and smashed down with the thunder hammer. Boom. A thunderbolt rumbled, and thousands of thunderbolts spread out with crackling sounds. Yan Xinghua's entire head was crushed. A headless corpse fell to the ground, charred on the outside and tender on the inside. "Kid, don't underestimate me. Die." A deafening roar rang out as a beam of light descended from the sky. Hong Juanhuan roared angrily and slashed his saber at Yunxiao. The blade light rose into the sky, illuminating the night as if it were day. A large area of houses was turned into dust by the saber chi. The martial artists of the Red Moon City were also shocked. Under the leadership of a few mid-stage martial sovereigns, they continued to pursue Wan Hongyu. A cold gleam flickered in Yunxiao's eyes. The Calabash King Kong flew out of his forehead and immediately transformed into an 80 feet tall King Kong, then threw a punch at the saber beam. The Ice Fiend Heartflame appeared on the fist wind like a small crystal clear flower that bloomed proudly under the spiritual pressure. Bang! The saber directly hit the fist of the gored little King Kong, and an extremely violent force instantly swept out. The gored little King Kong's entire body let out a powerful sound, and it kept buzzing in the air. At the same time, it was sent flying hundreds of meters away by the huge force. Yunxiao did not linger in the battle. He turned into a bolt of lightning and fled into the distance. In a flash, he was next to the Calabash King Kong, then put it back into his body and continued to chase after Wan Hongyu. Hong Juanwan's expression changed. The saber light felt like he had hit an extremely hard iron board, and his arm went numb from the impact. Who is this kid? He actually has so many rare treasures on him. Hong Juanwan's face darkened. He picked up his saber and was about to give chase. Suddenly, he saw the blade of the saber from the corner of his eye. He was shocked and dumbfounded. A thin layer of ice had formed on the blade of the saber. If one looked closely, they would see that the ice was jumping around like a flame. What shocked him even more was that the ice flame was devouring his saber, and there was already a fist-sized hole in it. This swan and I. Hong Juanhuan was stunned in the sky. His saber was made of unusual materials. It was a profound level weapon that was used to cut through things. Its hardness was unimaginable. How could it be swallowed by the flames? And from the looks of it, the gap was still expanding. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, and he hurriedly poured his emperor chi into the saber to extinguish the flame. However, he was shocked to find that his Emperor Qi immediately turned into nothing when it touched the ice flame. This Kasaya can burn everything? Hong Juanhuan was completely dumbfounded. He suddenly shouted and threw a fist radiance at the blade.